Welcome back to Projectadya, the show that asks the questions most people are too comfortable to sit with. I'm Nova, and today we are going somewhere that, frankly, might leave you questioning the one thing you have never, ever thought to question. Your own name, your sense of self, the word I. Everything you assume is the most solid, unshakable ground beneath your feet. Back with me today is Tor. He's a philosopher, existential thinker, and someone who has made it his life's work to walk straight into the hardest questions about reality and existence and, well, not flinch. Tor, welcome back to Projectadya.
Nova, it's always a pleasure. You know, most shows invite guests back because the audience liked them. I suspect you invite me back because you enjoy watching people squirm at their own reflection.
Guilty as charged. Though, in your case, you seem to enjoy it too.
Deeply. It is the only honest response to the human condition.
Tor, let's get straight into it. Today, we are talking about identity. Specifically, the idea that the entire edifice of the self, the ego, everything we think we are, might be built on something as fragile as language. Walk us through that.
Let's start with something deceptively simple, a phenomenon called semantic satiation. It is a well-documented neurological event, and it goes like this. Take any ordinary word. Let's say the word spoon. You say it once, and instantly your brain conjures the image of a curved utensil, right? A physical object with weight and purpose and history. The word and the meaning are fused. But now say the word out loud, continuously, without stopping, for 60 seconds. Around the 30th repetition, something breaks. The word completely detaches from the object it represents. The image vanishes. You are no longer saying a word. You are producing a strange alien sound. A raw acoustic event. Spoon. It sounds almost absurd. What happened is that the neural pathways responsible for connecting that sound to its meaning became fatigued. They literally stopped firing. The sound remained, but the meaning evaporated entirely.
And this is where it stops being a quirky brain trick and starts becoming something much bigger.
Exactly. Because semantic satiation is interesting when applied to cutlery. It becomes genuinely reality-bending when you apply it to the word I, or to your own name. Consider this. Your entire ego, the internal monologue, the voice in your head that worries and judges and narrates your life, is constructed entirely out of language, words. And the lead character of that internal story, appearing on every single page, is either your name or the word I. That word is the anchor of the whole construction, the pin that holds the entire map to the wall. So the question I have spent years sitting with is this. What happens when you fatigue the neurons responsible for that anchor?
There is an experiment described, repeating your own name or the word I until satiation sets in. What actually happens when someone does this?
Within a minute, perhaps two, the satiation arrives. Your name, which you have heard tens of thousands of times, which has followed you since before you could speak, suddenly sounds completely foreign. The syllables fracture. They lose their grip. And what follows the linguistic breakdown is a psychological dissonance that is genuinely difficult to prepare for. As the meaning drains from the word, the self attached to that word begins to feel extraordinarily thin. People describe a sudden detachment, a jarring moment of clarity where they hear this sound coming from their own mouth and realize with complete certainty that noise is not me. It never was. It was just a label. An acoustic agreement made by your parents before you had any say in the matter. And from that realization, the next question emerges with tremendous force. If the word I
is simply a phonetic placeholder that the brain can forget the meaning of in under 60 seconds, then who are you when the word is gone?
Wow, that question is the one that really cuts, isn't it? Because we spend our entire lives operating as though the answer is obvious.
We spend our entire lives not only assuming the answer is obvious, we defend it. We carve our names into trees. We correct strangers who mispronounce them. We build careers, relationships, entire identities around the maintenance of this label. And yet the label itself is revealed through a simple neurological exercise to be almost comically fragile. The ego is a master storyteller, but it requires the alphabet to function. The moment you overload the language center, the moment the linguistic scaffolding gives way, the story pauses, the narrator goes silent, and what you are left with is not chaos. It is something much, much quieter than that.
Let me push back slightly, because I imagine a listener right now thinking, fine, the word is just a word, but I am still here. My memories are still here. My personality didn't dissolve. How do you answer that?
It is the right challenge to raise. And here is how I would respond. The memories, the personality, the accumulated history, all of that is also stored and accessed through language. Your past embarrassments exist as sentences you replay internally. Your future anxieties are narratives you script in advance. Your professional identity is a title, more words. The entire structure of what we call the self is a linguistic architecture, a story told consistently across decades. And like any story, it only persists as long as someone keeps reciting it. What the experiment reveals is not that you cease to exist when the language fails. It reveals something far more interesting. That there is something present in that silence which exists prior to the language, before the name, before the pronoun, before the story. And that presence, that quiet, wordless awareness sitting in the room after the narrative collapses, that is what the hardest questions in philosophy, in mysticism, in every contemplative tradition across human history have always been pointing toward. They simply used different words for it.
And ironically, they had to use words to point toward the thing that exists beyond words.
The oldest trap in the business. And every tradition walked straight into it, because there was no other way.
Tor, final question. For someone who tries this experiment tonight and actually gets there, actually feels that strange detachment, that wordless silence, what should they do with it?
Don't reach for another word to explain it. That is the instinct, to immediately narrate the experience, to label it, to post about it, to tell a friend. Resist that for a moment. Just sit in it. Because what you are touching, in that brief interval between the collapse of the word and the reconstruction of the story, is the only part of you that has never actually needed a name. It was there before the language was installed. It will be there after the story eventually ends. That is not nothing. That is, depending on your orientation, either the most terrifying or the most liberating thing a human being can discover about themselves. Terrifying and liberating. The two words that follow you around every single time you come on this show.
I consider it a professional signature. Tor, as always, you left me with more silence than answers. And I mean that as the highest compliment. Thank you for coming back. Anytime, Nova. Though next time, let's do the experiment live. On air. Absolutely not. Our audience is not ready for that. They might be more ready than you think.
And that's a wrap on today's Projectadya. Tonight, if you're feeling brave, sit somewhere quiet. Say your own name out loud until it sounds like nothing.
And then just stay in what's left.
You might be surprised by who shows up.
Or rather, who was always already there. I'm Nova. See you next time.